Model. Save, save, save. Build a, build a, build a. Sound money. Sound money. Are we here? All right, we are. Okay, this is Ugly Old Goat, and I am so honored today because my good friend Tone Vays has honored us by coming on our show. And so I said, you know what? We're not going to have a real outlined, we're going to just have a colloquy, a discussion between two hardcore Bitcoiners. And I just want to let everybody know that I would not be doing this had it not been for the encouragement from Tone. And, I'm not very much in the space, but the little bit that I am, I do think that I'm helpful to a lot of people in their trading because of my experience. And I think in my small way, I'm the right person at the right time because there's some really big issues that are going to have to be addressed heart to heart with sound money advocates. And one of my the best teacher out there, particularly for the layman like me, is Tone Vays. I'm not a teacher, and he is. I'm that perennial C student, and he's the A student, and so he's taught me so much about Bitcoin and especially the fundamentals. And so we're going to just kind of sit here and pick each other's brains a little bit, and not not talk so much about where Bitcoin is going as far as price wise, but what are the problems that really lay ahead for us? Because I think there's some really big ones that we're going to have to overcome, and it may be much different than what we think superficially. So at that, I'll hand it over to you, Juan, and you can be the moderator.
All right. Well, I think you're going to be leading this show, but thanks for coming on, Tone.
Juan, your mic is actually a lot louder than Ugly's, so either one of you got to put that mic back or Ugly's got to move his up.
How's that? This one now, am I the same?
Better? Yeah.
Okay.
Right on. Yeah, you guys want to start with the Bitcoin price, or what would you like to?
No, well, let's talk about. We can start out with. Let's start out with what's going on with Bitcoin now, and basically, I think Tony and I are both of the same opinion that we're really not looking for a major move in Bitcoin, at least in the short term. And there's just too many problems. The number one thing that I get from Tone is that we're not going to take Bitcoin up to a new level. It cannot become sound money until we literally devastate the shitcoin markets. And we are both, particularly Tone is considered a man full of hate because he freely expresses those views. And can you elaborate to everybody just why you think that is? Why we just can't until
the main reason is, as you know, Ugly, there's no such thing as easy money. There's no such thing as free money. Everything comes at a cost. And even if you think you're getting something for free for a while, like any Ponzi scheme, it eventually hurts you real bad unless you're smart enough and you know when to get out. Now, there are things that are revolutionary throughout history. Even some of the stocks, like Microsoft. Sure, Microsoft fell in price during the dot-com bubble, and it fell in price during the 2007 bubble. But it's a company that's been around for 30 plus years, and it continues to innovate and it continues to do well. Apple is similar. So there are investments like that. Oil, for example, has, was only going up for a while. There's almost infinite amount of oil, but the rise in the price of oil in the early 1900s, when it was a negative asset, where if you found oil under your ground, basically your land is worthless, went immediately, holy shit, there's oil under my ground. I'm now a multimillionaire. And oil never went back to zero. Obviously, the world is still trying to get off of oil, but it's still very, very useful. And yes, the price recently went negative, due to the COVID situation. But in general, something like oil has been rising or steady in price for 100 years. So now we come to the world of Bitcoin. Gold is something similar as well. I know as much as the gold bugs want gold to be $1 million an ounce, gold has never really gone down. It basically maintained its purchasing power. 1 ounce of gold bought you a suit 100 years ago, probably 1,000 years ago, and an ounce of gold buys you a nice suit today. However, if you had money to invest 100 years ago, probably better off putting it in the stock market, because now you can own most suits in the world with that, as opposed to just one, with how much money you would have made over the last 100 years with dividends reinvested in the stock market. So now we come to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is also one of those assets. It's one of these assets that I believe is almost like oil, where it will continue to go up and up and up until its value is fully realized. So it will go up from worthless, which it was in the beginning, up to something very, very valuable. Now, unlike oil, which is almost infinite in supply, Bitcoin is not. So that gives Bitcoin a huge advantage in the fact that it can go perpetually up and up and up until its value is no longer useful, which I'm not expecting in my lifetime. I believe in my lifetime, Bitcoin will not be challenged. Maybe at the end of my lifetime, maybe. Now, there are threats to Bitcoin. Yes, there could be something insane in the code, which is unlikely but possible, that could potentially destroy Bitcoin. I don't believe there will be a competitor because as you read my article, which we can talk about, by the way, my decentralization article, I was working on that for a while in order to explain to people why Bitcoin can't really be challenged. So I expect Bitcoin to stick around. And I've been dealing with this the other day, and an old friend of mine, actually, well, I don't want to be too specific here, but so she recently got into Bitcoin, and obviously, like, everyone's heard about it from me for years and years and years. But the main reason why she got into Bitcoin was in order to make money from Bitcoin. And what does that mean? So I immediately started asking the questions. What do you mean make money from Bitcoin? Because it sounds like a Ponzi scheme. No matter what your answer is going to be, it's going to be a Ponzi scheme, because Bitcoin isn't there to be made money from. Bitcoin is the investment. You don't, if you have to go buy Bitcoin to make an investment, to make money, something is that you're going to lose the money. Like, that's how it always ends. So, and this was a very frustrating discussion because she's not crazy financially, like, knowledgeably inclined. So trying to explain to a person that Bitcoin is the investment. No, don't invest the Bitcoin somewhere. It is the investment. So obviously everyone makes it sound like there is easy money to be made, and people end up investing their Bitcoin into something. Now, whether that is something that is promising you a Bitcoin return, or that is some altcoin promising you to outperform Bitcoin, the end goal is you are trying to make easy money. And while that can work for a short amount of time, you're going to get burned unless you really know what you're doing. And the only way you know what you're doing is if you're some kind of an insider, and then you're just, now you're scamming on purpose. So either you're ignorant as to what is happening in the crypto space, or you fully understand what's happening in the crypto space and you think you're going to outsmart it, or you're an insider scamming other people. I don't want to spend too much time with each individual person trying to figure out which of the three they are, but it's usually somewhat obvious if the person is a known entity. And this comes down to all these people will get burned. Now, I was kind of hoping this altcoin space would die to open a path for Bitcoin to go forward. I think I'm the one that started talking about this long ago. Tyler Jenks was a complete believer in that as well. But right now, we've already moved on from DeFi onto non-fungible tokens, which is nothing new. The crypto kitties and everything just goes around. Nothing here is new. And with this current rise in the altcoin space, it's time for Bitcoin to rise again. The bear market has been pretty long, and it's time for Bitcoin to rise. But Bitcoin was supposed to rise by separating from the shitcoins, but it looks like it's not. Like, Bitcoin's time has come. In the next year or two, Bitcoin price is going to rise. And if the price of Bitcoin is rising and with the shitcoins, or the shitcoins are outpacing Bitcoin in its rise, I become very concerned again for 2017 round two, where the crash is going to be catastrophic, where Bitcoin falls another 80-85%, and the shitcoins fall 90 to 95%. And there's a huge difference between falling 80% and falling 95%. You think it's a little bit, but it's actually a lot, because Bitcoin's going to come back and those shitcoins won't, but there might be a new round of shitcoins. Now, had the shitcoins actually died in this bear market, I would have loved to see Bitcoin rise. And if Bitcoin was to rise by separating from the shitcoins, then it's that moonshot trajectory that doesn't necessarily need an 80 to 85% correction. One of the reasons why the Bitcoin crash was so bad in 2017 was because of all the shitcoins. Imagine a world where the current price today of $11,000 was a new all-time high. And we were on a nice slow rise from 2016, where the price was under 1,000, up to 11,000 today. If over the last 4 years, Bitcoin was steadily rising to 11,000 without the bubble, without the shitcoins, I would not even be anticipating a 20 or a 30% Bitcoin correction. So I think that was a very long story and a long answer, but this is what people need to understand, that it's not, you can't look at Bitcoin in isolation. You have to look at it in not only in its own ecosystem, but also within the global space. And the global space going through this money printing phase definitely helps Bitcoin. But if the shit coins are rising with it, that's going to be another horrible bubble.
Is this Trump populist bailout? It isn't, and what's going on, in the general economy, isn't what's going on in the crypto world just really a reflection of that? And we're kind of trapped in this thinking that it's very difficult to get out of unless you fundamentally understand Bitcoin. And one of the things that you've taught me is there's very few things that we can fundamentally understand, but Bitcoin is one of those things that once you understand the fundamentals and understand why it is unique and truly innovative, then you can develop the discipline to make it a standard to live by. But is that the difficulty I see now? We're a world just full of really poor thinking, and it seems to be reflected in the crypto world. Who would have ever thought we have a conservative president? Who was it, Yang? And I think even Jimmy Carter back in his day promised everybody $1,000. Well, people are getting it now, and they're saying, wow, this is so easy. I mean, why? We are really undermining the whole, economic system. I mean, America as we know it, if we keep going the direction we're on. And yet the conservatives have embraced this as being something wonderful. And because in a sense, I guess it's so, because I guess we're bailing out everyone instead of just, the companies that can't fail. But are we really kind of trapped in something we're unable to escape?
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but I don't think Trump, here's what bothers me, where a lot of Democrats, liberals, they somehow want to blame Trump for everything, where Trump's job is not to be the dictator of America. And yet they want him to be the dictator of America because they like to be dictators. Trump allowed the states to do their thing. It's like people are like, well, how come these other countries have like one united law for the country? And because this country doesn't work that way. This country has states. So Trump did not create a mandated mask policy because some states like North Dakota didn't have mask policy at all. And some states like New York City, for example, have mandatory masks, and fines, I think, are coming. So you can't have one size fits all policy. The US is a really big country. You can't have a one size fits all. And this is what bothers me. Like the president's job, I think every politician's job should be to defend the Constitution, not shred it. And this is what they're doing right now.
But aren't we shredding it by the very fact of the bailout itself? I mean, what it does is it's really undermining people's thinking. It's like it would have been unacceptable before this COVID thing to have this kind of a bailout. In fact, we had a presidential candidate, Yang, who proposed, give everybody $1,000. I think it was either Obama, I think it's early Jimmy Carter. I think Jimmy Carter, when he ran the second time, he was promising something like that. But here we are, we're embracing it as though, yeah, we have to do this now to save America.
No,
and is that America? Yeah.
It's bad. I mean, there was a better way to do it. Look, right now they're printing money and handing it out. The Democratic cities and states have, put a moratorium on, you can't evict people. Well, if you can't evict people, why do they need to pay rent?
Exactly.
I heard some cities like restaurants, like 60 or 80% of restaurants, they couldn't pay their rent. So what are you going to do? And you can't evict them. So the problem, look, there was a much simpler solution that they could have done without printing and handing out money, but they want to print and hand everybody money. I mean, this is how you shut people up. The way to do it was, look, you bailed out the banks in 2008. The banks are your deputies anyway. You can just tell the banks, hey, we're going to put a freeze on all loan payments. And you can't tack on extra interest. So that's it. Your loans are frozen, whether it's your mortgage, whether it's whatever, your credit card. You can charge, if you charge more on your credit card, yes, that's tacked onto your bill, and that part will earn additional interest. And you pay that further down. So if you have a mortgage on your property, let's say you have $100,000 mortgage. They put a freeze on your payments. You don't have to make the payment for 6 months. And I think they did that. They gave you an option. Hey, you don't have to pay your mortgage, and then you just pay 6 months extra on the back of your loan. So basically, your loan just skips 6 months, and then it keeps going, but it doesn't tack on 6 months of extra interest either. It just kind of gets frozen for 6 months. But you can also say the same thing to the renter, where you say, hey, because your landlord has the ability not to pay the mortgage, you as a renter, because you're a renter and your landlord probably depends on that income to survive, your payment, your rent drops by 50% or 75% for the 6 months that the landlord is also allowed not to pay the mortgage. And then it goes back to what it was after like 6 months. And these are the kinds of efforts they should have done. They should have they should have made people's life easier to pay their bills, not hand them out money, because you don't know what they're going to do with it. And there's also so much, corruption that goes on in between those two steps. And it was interesting how I learned this. I learned this when I was going to grad school, where I was doing a degree in financial engineering. And on the first day of grad school, where they're telling us, what's going to happen, because the reason why I went to Florida State where I did was because they offered me a full scholarship. They offered me a full scholarship to get my master's degree because I was going to be a teaching assistant and I was going to teach classes because I already had teaching experience being a high school teacher before I got to start my master's. And and the economics professor goes, the normal way to do this is you teach and you would get paid for teaching. They still pay you a salary, a small one, but because you're teaching, they also give you free tuition at the college. And they're like, well, the normal way to do it is that your tuition would simply be waived, but that's not how it works. You have to file a bunch of paperwork, get the money, and then move that money to the college to pay your tuition. So this is like a ridiculous process that takes up a lot of bureaucracy, where money gets lost in the middle for no reason whatsoever. Just waive the goddamn tuition and make life easy. But no, you have to go through the paperwork, get the money in your bank account, and then go and pay your tuition bills. So they just make everything overcomplicated just so middleman can, profit from it or look good by doing it. I'm giving out money, so vote for me next time.
Yeah, but isn't this one of the problems? Is that if we say, okay, the bailout is good, whatever form we want to set it up, then is more better, and that's the natural thinking that comes with this. I mean, why limit it that? Why not just forgive all student debt? Forgive, and that's what's fearful. It's the mentality, that kind of thinking, even with people that are physical conservatives. It's not a debate of whether or not we have a bailout. It's just the details of the bailout.
I have a problem with forgiveness of debt. For example, I have been very responsible with my debts throughout my life, my mortgage, everything. Like forgiving debt, some guy that took on, that just bought a $1 million apartment, or took on, no one forced him to go to that school and get that kind of debt. Like, what do you say to the guy who just paid off his debt? Someone that just literally got a good bonus and just threw in $50,000 to pay off his debt. And then 3 months later, the government announced all student debts forgiven. It's like, well, can I get my $50,000 back? So I have a little problem with simply forgiving debt. Like, restructure shit so that this debt doesn't get collected going forward. Maybe remove the interest on that debt. Maybe you can drop it kind of like systemically. Maybe you could reduce it based on the profession. Hey, being a doctor is kind of vital to society. So maybe the debt on becoming a doctor would be lowered. But hey, if you decided to go to Harvard on liberal arts or a literature degree, yeah, I'm sorry, that degree isn't vital to society and human health. Maybe that loan shouldn't be forgiven. That was your choice.
All right. Well, I think we've covered the fundamentals of the economy. I don't know if we've really covered the fundamentals of Bitcoin. I would recommend anybody that is new into Bitcoin that you go to you listen to Tone Vays, go to his blogs, and kind of stay tuned, because he's probably, I think, the best teacher for the layman to understanding fundamentals. And he teaches that it's one of the few things that we can understand the fundamentals. We don't know the fundamentals of any particular stock because we're not an insider to that stock. You might become familiar with the fundamentals of certain commodities if you become an expert of it. But that's why his emphasis is technical trading, because you don't know what the fundamentals are in most things. There's one exception, and that's Bitcoin. And that's why the whole idea of accumulation and dollar cost averaging is the key to success in Bitcoin. And it's just repeated itself over and over and over again from its very beginning. And the best way to illustrate it is through the dollar cost averaging. There's even a lot of services now that you can actually see what it is, the dollar cost average every day or every week, or we just started every month. And I do think we were kind of the first one to point that out. I'm glad to see, that people are starting to pick up on that. The most important thing in my mind is you don't need to build on Bitcoin. I'm not a developer. I don't understand the Bitcoin back end, don't pretend to. But the most important thing is to center your life and become an entrepreneur. My belief is that the next big wave in Bitcoin is not going to come from banking the unbanked. Most people here in Mexico are unbanked. And so what's going to come is there's two kinds of entrepreneurs, those with Bitcoin and those without. And it's going to be how quickly this transition comes. Most entrepreneurs do not have Bitcoin. And I think that as they learn that they going to need Bitcoin to survive in their entrepreneurship. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can have a car wash, you can be a contractor. It's like on the gold, when we had a gold standard, people were able to prosper and create new things because they had a standard to live by. And that's, I think, the focus that we just need to emphasize people over and over again. And what we can go into a little bit now, I guess, on trading, because I mean, Tone and I have seen it repeatedly that people, yes, they believe in sound money, they believe in Bitcoin, and yet they've made and lost fortunes in Bitcoin through speculative trading. So how do we get around taking those kind of hits and to have a consistent creation of wealth, in the years ahead, Tone?
Well, again, this is the problem with the shitcoin space. I don't think they create wealth. I think they just create a few rich people and an entire this bubble economy, this meme economy that's somehow supposed to prosper. And I think these destructions of the crypto space falling 80-85% in value is not good. The tech bubble only happened once. And it wiped out all of these useless .coms, and some new regulations came in as well on securities, and there wasn't another tech bubble. Like, people no longer invest in things because they have a .com at the end of it. Like, everyone figured out and learned their lesson after the .com bubble, and I really expected people to learn the same lesson after the 2017 bubble. The 2013 was different. The 2013 bubble was mostly just Bitcoin. Bitcoin went up, and then Mt. Gox goes down, and there was this unreasonable hype. So that bubble was just Bitcoin. But then the 2017 bubble had shitcoins go for the ride. But I didn't expect the shitcoins to come back with a vengeance. And it looks like they are. Now they're just wrapped with different slogans. They're not ICOs anymore. It's DeFi, and it's non-fungible tokens, and God knows what else. All this other silly stuff that's actually as bad, if not worse, than 2017. So let's see how far it goes. And I think once people realize that it's just Bitcoin, then it will go up. Remember, Google Trends for people interested in Bitcoin is nowhere near 2017 levels, not even close. So we are still so far away from people's interest. I know my content on my YouTube channel has not really evolved. I'm not really doing anything new. If you've watched me for the last 5 years, you're probably not hearing anything new. So it makes sense why people have stopped watching my channel. But my numbers are down 75% from 2017 as far as views are concerned. And a big chunk of that, like I said, is there's only so much I can teach you. Once you understand that shitcoins are shitcoins and Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and you're not a trader, that's kind of it. And if you're a short-term trader, I'm also not all that helpful. So it does make sense that my numbers would slowly drop, but it also tells me that new people are not entering the space. And if they are, they're entering the space and watching, scammers on YouTube, because that's most of the channels. And
how long do you think it's going to take for us to work through this shitcoin business? I mean, is it possible we could run through it within months, or will it take years, or will it actually take as much as a generation or two?
I'm now back to years. Because it feels like it's only getting worse. And some of them are infiltrating government. So take something like Ripple, for example, where they have billions to spend, and they're now infiltrating meetings like the IMF and stuff like that. Now, I'm hoping that people at the top of the, like government economists, can see the bullshit of the Ripple token. But who the hell knows? They're like Trojan horse right there. But
Well, I did a study on this Ripple. It kind of hit me when you did the your halving, because you kind of let the Ripple people take over the podium for a little while, which I thought was great. I wanted to write an article. I've just never gotten around to it. But this there really is not a remittance. Ripple, the remittance is not an issue. And I live down here in Mexico, and most of the people are not banked. The way that they bank themselves is through a convenience store. It's called OXXO. It's like 7-Eleven in the United States, but it's there's 7-Eleven in here too, but it's very small compared to OXXO. And that really acts as most people's banks and remittances. And they don't, the operation, I mean, because I'm familiar with hedging operations, they don't need, the reason it's set up that way is because it's a little mini market or convenience store. So they're handling a lot of cash. And so to be able to handle the remittances of people, and they're usually $500 or less, but there's millions of them, but they have the cash at the store to make that a bank for the unbankable. And it's a very efficient system. They don't need or use Ripple. In fact, I did a test, and yeah, Ripple was a little bit faster than Ethereum. It was a little bit cheaper than Ethereum. I did a Bitcoin, I did Ethereum, and I did Bitcoin, and I did Bitcoin Cash, all at the same time. And Ripple was a little bit faster, but didn't really mean much. And the slowest one was Bitcoin Cash.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ugly. What does it mean Ripple was faster? Like,
well, it took maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds less. It took 30 seconds.
Wait, back up.
Yeah.
You would have to convert the Mexican peso into Ripple. Then you would have to send Ripple somewhere, and then you would have to convert the Ripple back into dollars, or the other way around.
Exactly. Right. And as a matter of if you just assume the transfer of funds, it doesn't work. If you eliminate all of that.
And imagine, look, Ripple is 25 cents a coin. If Ripple changes price by a penny, it makes a giant freaking difference.
Oh yeah, it does. It really does. And the only way they've made it work is they literally give the Ripple to, I don't know which company it was. I think if it was anyway, one of those money.
Right. So that's the thing. They have billions of Ripples, and they control the exchange rate. They just give it away. They don't really control the exchange rate, but no one cares. Like no actual person will ever be using it.
No. And the idea that the banks will be using is just foolishness, because they don't need it. I guarantee you OXXO doesn't need it. Their cash flow is, they might have a little shortage at this store or that store, but they can easily make up through the banking system in Mexico.
Yeah, that's a big
but also here's the other situation, is that you have all of these people invested in the Ripple token, believing that Ripple is so in bed with the government that the government is gonna either the global government or the US government is somehow gonna announce that we're gonna eliminate the US dollar and it will now be the Ripple token. The Ripple currency will be the future of American dollar. Like, this is how these people think, or they're just bullshitting to try to convince other people to buy into this nonsense. And this is spreading. This is not going away. This is only getting worse because of articles like, hey, Ripple CEO is in another meeting with Christine Lagarde, or in a meeting with a chairman of the Fed, or has Bill Clinton speaking at his conference. And this is like fueling people to buy in to these scam coins that were only created to give money to the company.
Okay, then after, of course, that was the first thing I looked into, and that was how I was looking into it. Then the DeFi all came alive. And I might be wrong on this, but I kind of believe Richard Hart might have been the original DeFi. And everybody maybe followed him a little bit. And I wrote articles.
Right, we can use Richard Hart as an example, right? So
yeah.
he prints this scam coin out of thin air, convinces a bunch of people how much it's going to go up in value. And now you know, it's another scam coin that's out there with its own giant pool of supporters, and you don't know if they're real people. You don't know if they're bots. A lot of them are sock puppets, but they're convincing new people that are coming into the space to buy into these scams. And I don't see these scams going away at all. I only see them at this point increasing. And it's insane how people are like, well, even people in the comments, they're like, well, shitcoins aren't going away. Some of these shitcoins are going to succeed. And yeah, there's 5,000 of them. Saying that some of them are going to succeed is not a very, you know, intelligent answer. Some of them are going to succeed. And my answer is maybe 1 or 3 of them will succeed. I doubt it, but yes, it is possible. But here's what is not possible. You knowing which one they are. It's if people try to take credit, you're going to like this one. When people, another thing that people just don't misunderstand is occasionally I hear people say, well, Tone only got lucky with Bitcoin. And that's how he's here. He got lucky with Bitcoin. And it's hard for me to fight this answer, but here's how I know I didn't get lucky with Bitcoin. Here's how I know Roger Ver got lucky with Bitcoin and I didn't. He got a lot luckier because he bought in earlier. The way you know if someone got lucky with Bitcoin is if they switched to a shitcoin because they never understood Bitcoin to begin with. That is someone that got lucky with Bitcoin. I'll even put, like, recently, I don't know if you saw, I tweeted out Rick Falking's 2011 statements and interviews where he was on Max Kaiser's show. He was one of the first people that had a global following that was basically saying he sold everything. He maxed out his credit cards. He did everything and went in all in on Bitcoin. And you seem really smart until you switch to the Bcash side in 2017. And that's what it tells me. Yes, you were smart, but you also got lucky because you never clearly understood what Bitcoin was. And that's how you know if someone got lucky or not. Did they switch to some ridiculous project?
And the warning or deception I want to warn people against is that, unfortunately, the deception is the way it's marketed. And whatever shitcoin it is, they eventually come out and say better than Bitcoin. I actually, when I wrote about Hex and Richard Hart, I actually he still banned me from conversation, but I actually complimented him because originally it did start out. He said this is a scam coin. This is a pump and dump. I said, we finally have somebody that's addressed it honestly. But once it got initiated and once it started being promoted, he had to go back to the narrative. It's better than Bitcoin. That's the only way they can do it. They have to promote it as better than Bitcoin. And you know what? Most of us have fallen victim to that. I saw Bitcoin for what it was, but I did for a short time do a little speculation in the altcoin with about 5% of my Bitcoin. I did have to get lucky and not lose anything, make a little bit, but my gosh, when I started studying those fundamentals, and it was Tone that taught me the fundamentals. He taught me so well that I sold all my Ethereum at I don't know what price, but I sold my Ethereum way too quickly. But as a trader, I've learned now, if you look at the long-term charts, once those altcoins have that pump, they just go down, 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 and they don't come back. And there might be one or two that, maybe, I mean, there's some hardcore Bitcoiners are now giving, Ethereum a little bit of credit. I don't. I think the Ethereum is going to be the black swan event that could, really hammer Bitcoin one more time before we can reverse it.
Ethereum would be a big blow to the shitcoins because most of them launch on there because it's just the easiest way. Like launching your own network and maintaining your own network and separating it from Bitcoin. Yeah, there's websites that let you copy, paste, and launch, but to sustain it for any significant period of time, it's actually.
Juan, I'm sorry, I can barely hear you, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, the death of Ethereum would be a significant blow to the shitcoins, and because launching your own network and maintaining your own network is actually work. Whereas in Ethereum, you more or less like, you launch it and then you don't have to worry about a lot of the low level sort of stuff. It just kind of, you just got to make sure that the contract doesn't get hacked and go do a bunch of marketing and build a website, right? And you just got to be a good enough web developer. And so, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, if it's really like that Bitcoin's not going to grow until the alts die, then I guess we got to look for that.
No,
we got to look for
Bitcoin will still grow. Bitcoin has its own life cycle, and it's clearly 4-year life cycle before that because of the halvings. So Bitcoin will still grow. Bitcoin will still go and make a new high, but these shit coins is what's gonna keep Bitcoin extra volatile, because when Bitcoin falls, it'll fall harder. Like it'll rise faster and it will fall faster because of the shit coins. Bitcoin, the shit coins existence and this insanity to get something for nothing from scams, this is what's going to keep Bitcoin extra volatile until the shit coins go away. Same thing with the entire NASDAQ, where the NASDAQ was rising nice and steady after the .com crash. Like if you look at the chart of the NASDAQ throughout the 08 crash, it doesn't fall that much because it had a nice slow rise. And during the 08 financial crisis, tech was doing great. Internet was getting very strong. The iPhone came out right around that time. Android was starting to come out. So the tech sector was doing great. And sure, it took a hit like everything else took a hit. But the tech sector definitely weathered the blow much better in 08. And it was a nice and steady rise all the way until COVID, pretty much 10 years. Had a little bit of a scare in 2016 as well, 2015, 2016. 2015 had problems in Europe. 2010 was the follow-up to 2008, but the tech sector weathered that storm as well. So it's these shit coins, they're going to keep Bitcoin extra volatile. And if Bitcoin, the more volatile Bitcoin is, the harder it is for the world to adopt Bitcoin. So it's this shitcoin space that I think is doing, it's going to delay global Bitcoin adoption because people are buying into these shitcoin scams. And they're not doing anything innovative. When they say we're better than Bitcoin, the only question you have to ask is, are you more decentralized than Bitcoin? And if the answer is no, then you're not better than Bitcoin. Like we had instant transfers, PayPal. We've had cheap and free transactions. Again, PayPal. We've had store of value, gold. Like you're not going to beat any of those with your shitcoin. You're not better than PayPal. You're not. You're just decentralized, and you're not instant, and you're not free. So you can't compete. The only thing, so there's no way there's anything that's better than Bitcoin because you're not more decentralized than Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm reading the book, The Sovereign Individual right now, and it talks kind of about the transition of eras between what is now the nation state era into what is becoming the digital era, right? The digital age, the information age. And we are really in a disinformation age today. Like the biggest channels out there are, we like America alone is like two separate narratives, grand narratives colliding. And we see kind of the same thing in a microcosm in Bitcoin. We have basically every altcoin has its own bubble, and everybody's telling their own story and their own version of reality. And I don't know that there's any real solution to it other than time. Like it might actually be that people just gotta grind through the lies and the nonsense and let reality assert itself. And longevity will be the thing that proves the point, right? When everybody gets scammed and then they look at Bitcoin and Bitcoin's still there and still moving and still going up slowly, but moving while everything else is dead, then maybe we will get there. But, it was funny because the internet was supposed to spread the truth, it was like free ideas, but to some degree, I guess the platforms and like there's been enough attacks on it that now everybody's just confused. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's going to take some more time for things to kind of settle.
But I'm totally with you. You would think that in the world of the internet, truth would be a lot easier to figure out, but it's not. I think it's worse than ever. I think it's really bad. Like, look at what's going on with the whole COVID thing. Like, it's insane. When people keep asking me, "Will there be? Do you think there'll be a COVID round, like a second wave of COVID?" And my answer was not in the sense that you're medically in danger. I don't think there's going to be a second wave, but hell yeah, there's going to be a second and a third and a fourth and a 10th wave of fear on your television. All those waves are going to be coming every single 3 months. But as far as how dangerous it is to you, I can't see it. And I had it from the moment sports started. I said instantly, that's it. Like, you can't tell me that this is dangerous and then, have football. Like, come on, give me a break. Either it is or it isn't dangerous. So it's just stupid. Well, like, if you're saying this is dangerous, why are you having sports? Why are you having people tackling each other? Why are you having people playing basketball? Like, no, either end this insanity or cancel all sports and cancel all of these events to keep people distracted, more distracted, so you can feed them more propaganda.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it's an issue that, has grabbed hold, unlike global warming and climate change.
Oh God! I'm sorry. So we can bring this up because last night during the debate, I ended up in this heated discussion with someone over the whole climate change thing. That's another one. Oh God, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just joking the other day when I was 15 years old in junior high school and I farted, in public, you'd say slugs to avoid getting hit. And now I think the youngsters are saying climate change, because if you fart, of course, you're part of the problem. And
CO2 emissions.
So yeah, the climate change is the same thing, and well, like most of the people are all the same. Like the people that are driving in their car or sitting in their home by themselves with a mask on are usually the same people that are fear mongering over climate change, and it's the same people that are only eating, vegan diets, and it's the same people that want infinite money printing. It's not always the same person, but it's generally more likely than not, you're fitting several of these categories, not just one.
So how is Bitcoin going to overcome a lot of these problems? Are we actually going to create, my belief is that Bitcoin is actually creating almost a stateless, international community that yes, we all have to live in jurisdictions, but Bitcoin is a way to free yourself. You may not be free from getting arrested and put in jail, but at least they're not going to be able to confiscate all of your wealth. They can confiscate your house, your cars, your property, but as long as you have those keys and have them protected, they can't challenge your wealth. And isn't maybe that's the fundamental hope that we have to reestablish liberty and freedom in the world that we live in?
Yeah, that's one major factor. I do want to get back to, since I didn't elaborate on the climate change thing. People in your live chat are saying climate change isn't a political issue, though. No, but it is a political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue, but it is a political issue, and it's a huge political issue. And not only is it a political issue, it's an issue where some people are telling other people how to live their life because of this politicizing of climate change. No, it is, there is science behind it. And the science to me is you want to keep pollution to a minimum. That's where the science needs to be. It's like, hey, you are doing so-and-so that is causing pollution, that is causing harm, pollution. The overall climate changes, and it always does. So it's the pollution problem that needs to be solved, not the climate change problem. And this is the and this is the issue. Yeah, put clean water, clean air, right? That's a pollution issue. That's not a climate change issue. And that's what bothers me about this stuff, is that they're wrapping everything together. Like the summers of 96, and I remember how hot those were, still the hottest summers. I'm sorry, the planet isn't getting warmer, it's getting cooler. We just had, I was just hearing on the radio how the French Open in Paris is like the coldest one they've ever had. And it's like, yeah, and Germany the last couple of years has been incredibly cold. The planet is pretty damn cold these days. It's colder than it was before. Sure, you get an occasional record heat day in certain places, but pretty much it's colder. But I always drive the point, separate pollution problems from climate change problems, because they're not really climate change problems. In fact, climate change shouldn't even be a problem. We have a pollution problem, which, yes, we need to solve. And anyway, we can do a whole
no, that's a you know, one of the most important things that I emphasize in the Bitcoin space is we have to control the terms and the narrative. And it's really sad that, you know, that Vitalik was able to control the narrative by coming up with the term maximalist, because by accepting that, we're assuming that there's some truth to it. Whereas, I mean, I really like that analogy, that it really is. I mean, climate change, yes, there's climate change, but it's got nothing to do with the problem. The human problem is we pollute. And so we work on pollution. That's the solution. And that's what sound money is. And if you believe Bitcoin is the standard, if you believe Bitcoin is sound money, then we really need to be Bitcoin standard bearers. Hey, we understand what sound money is, and we live it by example. I was going to ask you, since I got you here, because of what's going on in this populist Trump bailout, do you see hyperinflation on the horizon?
I don't, not even close. Oh man, I keep seeing good comments, and I keep going back to the whole climate thing. A motorist, I agree with you. Habitat destruction is also a problem. But here's the thing: when you point out a problem in pollution, you can have a solution. Like, hey, here's a problem with one specific pollution, whether it's the river in a certain city, whether it's an outlet to the ocean, buses with exhaust. When you describe a problem as pollution, and not general pollution, specific type of pollution, you can come up with a solution. When you present the problem as habitat destruction, destroying the rainforest in Brazil, that can have a solution. It's going to be a challenging solution, but at least it has a solution. When you pose the problem as climate change, there is no solution. And that's basically the argument. I got tired of that argument last night over climate change. And I started saying, well, what's your solution to the climate change problem? Let's kill everybody. That's the only solution. So, like, when you pose the problem that humans are causing climate change, there's only one solution: to become Thanos in Endgame. But let's kill 90% of the people, not 50, right? Because now 50 won't do it. So, like, you can't pose the problem as climate change. You gotta actually pose a problem that you can have a solution for. All right, now let's get back to Bitcoin. So I don't see any hyperinflation on the horizon for the US dollar, because the US dollars are absorbed globally. Not to mention, they're printing dollars at a time where they're completely there's mass wealth destruction. So the trillions of dollars that have evaporated from the US has not been reprinted yet. So San Francisco, New York, California, people are moving out of those areas. Like, people are moving out of New York City and moving into the suburbs for multiple reasons. One, because of the mayor over there in New York City is starting to become a lot more dangerous, a lot more violent. And a lot of the businesses are going to be closing down. And not to mention that if you can work from home, you will work from home going forward. So there's absolutely no reason to live in New York City if it's becoming more dangerous, if it's becoming a bad place. And why are you going to live there? Why are you going to pay these rents? So the real estate prices have pretty much crashed in New York City. Outside of New York City, they're doing okay because that's where people are moving. California is the same thing. California is talking about more taxes and all this other insanity, the fires in San Francisco, because the US doesn't know how to maintain their forests. Again, same problem. There's a problem, too many forest fires. We have science. We have professional people that can do that. I mean, you create fires on purpose in certain areas as a professional to prevent these mass forest fires that destroy homes. So you have this crazy capital destruction, and the printing of money has not even made up for that yet. Now, when we eventually recover, all this money printing and then all this value goes up, and then sure, then there's more value, but the US dollar is also being absorbed globally. I'm still waiting for when this ends. So Europe shut itself down pretty badly. So I think Europe is in a lot of trouble. And imagine a scenario where the euro common currency breaks up into its components. The dollar will go through the roof. If this COVID, if this economic shutdown completely destroys Greece's economy or the Italian economy, and Greece and Italy are leaving the Eurozone common currency, what happens? Every single Greek, every single Italian, they're not going to want their new country's currency. They're going to try to convert those euros if they even feel that this might happen. They're going to convert those euros. What are you going to convert the euros to? You're probably not going to go out and buy gold. That makes it difficult. You have Bitcoin, if you've heard of Bitcoin, so that certainly helps Bitcoin. But your only other two options are the US dollar and maybe the British pound, since the UK is on its way completely out. I mean, they were never on the euro, but now they're getting out of the there's Eurozone, and then there is European Union. So the UK is getting out of the European Union. They were never in the Eurozone. I know it's confusing over there. So I see dollar eventually strengthening because everything else is just a disaster. The Turkish lira is once again going crazy because they're having military conflicts. Like, where else are you going to go? If you're an American or you're not an American, it's still the safest currency to be in. So how can you have hyperinflation when your currency is in global demand?
Well, the way I see it is, I don't see how you can keep inflating. I hope that's true. I hope that the demand, stays. But I'm afraid that we have made a fundamental shift in psychology in the way that we think. I think I just don't see the same values today that we had, even 40, 80, 120 years ago or 200 years ago. And I mean, we basically, the quote fiscal conservatives we're all socialists now. I mean, we're all basically subject to this central. Look how easy people write. Wow, it's so easy. The government just deposited $1,000 in my bank account. Well, how is that going to affect our thinking, our long-term thinking? I mean, if a little bit is good, more is better, isn't it?
What do you mean by more is better?
Well, now that we started the bailout of everyone, before we just gave it to the elite, the certain, the favored banks, the businesses that can't fail. Now we can't let anybody fail. And basically the all I see is the difference is that this is a populist bailout where everybody's involved now, which might be, and the right guy's in charge. Trump is probably the only guy that has gone through multiple bankruptcies, and he never did hurt his suppliers, for the most part, his clients. He always left the banks hanging. So if there's anybody that's figured out, how to play this game, maybe he is the expert at it. I don't know.
Yeah, and like how else do you kill the dollar, right? Like it's impossible to pay that debt, almost entirely impossible. It's a joke that anybody can that paid can be that debt can be paid. So you just inflate it. I mean, really, that's the only realistic path to the end of the dollar. But it's not going to be just the dollar. It's going to have to be all the other currencies behind it because the dollar is the best of all the other fiats.
Right, and that's the issue. You can't kill the dollar until it's no longer the best currency out there. So if anything, and I don't see any other country able to do better. So we're stuck with the dollar until Bitcoin can take it over.
I was looking to, I think it was the halving that I don't know who it was, the guy by the name of Breedlove. I can't remember his first name, but I think he was,
Robert Breedlove. Was he on my halving show? I don't remember.
No, I think they had their own halving show. There were 3 or 4 guys on there, and it was either him or another guy. They talked about what's the biggest threat to the economy, and basically the biggest threat that he came up with, and I kind of agree with him. I can't remember the guy's name. I don't think it was Breedlove, but it's the exit chutes. That even though we have this huge, all this great digital economy, when the panic hits, nobody's going to be able to exit fast enough, and it's like it's going to be an overnight phenomenon.
Well, that's what happens with every bubble, with the shit coins as well. It happens in general. But it was something else that you said, Ugly, that I think of it slightly the opposite when you said the government can't let anybody fail right now, and that's why they're printing money. And I see it as the government did make everybody fail. They shut down the economy. They forced everyone to fail, and now they're bribing them and paying them off to stay quiet about it.
Okay, that's very fair interpretation. Yes, it was a created catastrophe. That is kind of the yin yang. Make the best of any crisis. And
right. Don't let a good crisis go to waste. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't let the crisis go to waste.
America's in a really tricky position because as you said, it's not a dictatorship, right? Like as much as the Democrats like to frame it that way, it really isn't. The federal government, especially under Trump, like he really stepped back and let the states decide, and he played a real tactful, real careful. Even with the riots, he held back and let the states deal with it, and let the states ask for permission. He could have gone in heavy. Now, but it's a political problem, right? Like there's 2 camps, and one of them wants to lock everything down, and then the other one doesn't. Like everything's become politicized, and those attacks need to become expensive again. Like that stuff has to stop working before can we get over this sort of.
But the biggest concern, why have we fallen for this? This is what's just amazing me. It's but the world has. I mean, basically,
people watch CNN all day. That's how they keep falling for it. Not that any other channel is that much better. But no. The other thing that oh man, I was gonna say something a second ago on you were saying, oh yeah, the Trump thing. So look, here's the big question. Did Trump shut down international travel too soon, too early, or just on time? And this was one of the questions during the debate the other night. And also, here's how I remember it went down. Trump wanted to take the virus more seriously early on. The Democrats went apeshit over Trump, like shutting down flights from China, even. So that delayed Trump's shutdown of the international travel and the U.S. border, which now the Democrats are saying Trump closed the border too late. So how do you argue that? Like,
they're just lying. They're seriously lying, and it's the media supporting them, and it's Silicon Valley supporting them, and then they're censoring the people that are speaking out about it, right? Like there was a moment before and during the 2016 election that alternative media was rising and doing really well. Alex Jones was bigger than CNN. And then they took down Alex Jones, and then they started taking people out. And it was, yeah, I'm sure there's some bad people in there, but basically the voices that were actually starting to win the narrative, a lot of them just got deleted.
Well, as I say, the biggest problem is nobody wants to really limit government. Everybody, everybody thinks they have the solution, and rather than really realizing the reason that America was founded on limited government is because the founding fathers, the premise back then is that, you know, man was by nature evil, that we can't be trusted either individually or collectively with too much power. And now everybody has their own solution, and they say, you know, and it seems like, you know, this centralized money is the way that they think they can control it. And to me, that's why Bitcoin is so unique. It's a limited governance. It puts limits on everyone. And it's the only limitation I see that we have right now to have the world just evolve into total, utter chaos. I mean, I might be mistaken on this, but I think that by thinking in Bitcoin, by putting yourself on the Bitcoin standard, it's going to be the only way to keep your sanity and provide for your family, you know, in the years ahead. It's a really spooky time, guys. It really is.
Yeah.
And I lived during the Vietnam War when I saw the riots very similar to what we're having today, but this is much more widespread, much more deep-seated, and it's not a war issue. It's silliness.
Mm-hmm.
No, there were way during the Vietnam that I think that was way more serious, and those protests were significantly. I feel those were. Well, let me not say something that's gonna get me in trouble. But getting back to the whole, Trump thing for one more second. If there was a Democratic president, I'm pretty sure no matter what he did during COVID, the other side, the Republicans, would scream bloody murder as well. So it's maybe not on the border issue. Maybe they would do it on the border. They'll find something else to scream about that's more towards their base, because the Democrats are all about, you know, let's get as many people in this country as possible in the U.S. The Republicans have their own issues. So yeah, if there was a Democratic president, no matter what he would have done, I'm sure he would have gotten equally as much backlash and equally as much shit, just maybe on different things in that area. So so you never know. But the whole mask thing, that's like the latest thing that's driving me nuts. I was driving past the schoolyard today, and literally there's like kids, 2-3 years old, outside playing like hopscotch in the yard of their school, and they're all wearing freaking masks. Oh my God. Like, I would never send my kid to school. I would not send my 3-year-old to a school to force him to wear a mask, especially outside.
Well, it's caused all kinds of problems. I mean, down here, when you go to the store, you know, I got to remember, I can't take my daughter with me because they won't let you take, it has to be one person per family. Yeah. And so what's the alternative? I leave her. I had to do that once. I left her in the truck, locked, you know, sealed up. And I just said, I got to make this a quick trip. And it just causes all kinds of problems. And as you're getting older, you know, they have these little obstacles that you got to step through. I'm just about falling down, tripping. It's really makes life much more difficult. And the hoops that businesses are having to go through to maintain their businesses is just we've made business 3 times harder, and how they even been able to maintain themselves, I don't know. A lot of them haven't, and a lot of them are. When we go to isolated places, just that's the only place I've seen where they're completely ignored.
It's neuroticism institutionalized. Like the statistics, you compare it to any other major killer disease. Like you're more likely to die with diabetes in Mexico than you are of COVID. But nobody talks about that, right? There's no.
At this point, you're more likely to die from lightning than only COVID. Like
only COVID, right?
Yeah, and kids are much less likely to get hit by this stuff. It's really people that have comorbidities and are older and stuff like that. So,
well, I think we've been on long enough, but are there any questions out there that should be answered?
I think we're just kind of hanging out.
We can talk about the price. I mean, I did expect the price when I wrote my article in early January. We're already going into October, so there's only 3 months left in the year. I wrote that I anticipated a crash below 5,000 or before the halving, which we got. And then I expected the price to stay under 10,000 for the majority of the year. And so far, the price has stayed under, the price has only been above 10,000 on about 65 days or so this year, with a maximum of 90 more days to go. So we'll see what happens.
You can
still think I'm going to be right
if you want.
Yeah, if you want to do screen share, you can go ahead. I mean, I'm right now. I've just reduced my position size. I do a very small amount of trading in Bitcoin. I've made as much. This last little thing, I sold all the alts and did much better than buying the Bitcoin. And but I just don't. I don't see. I think you might be I think you're going to win your bet, Tone. I think we can finish this year out below the 10,000.
Well, we would have to get there soon because I am down. I don't think I'm going to win the bet. I think it's very, very unlikely. So I am already down 72 days, actually. So there's only, wow, that's creeping up on me. So there's only about 20 days left. So Bitcoin needs to stay under, that's 20 days left out of 90. So Bitcoin has to spend 70 out of the next 90 days below 10,000. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we will stay in this vicinity of 10,000 for the rest of the year. I just see this continuing to consolidate for a little while. It may pop, but then it's going to fall.
Right. I just don't see a move up or down. So I think, and that's the healthiest thing. I guess I wish that more than anything, because it just gives people that are not in Bitcoin a better opportunity to make that transition. And plus, I'm a little bit, there's just way too much bullishness out there in Bitcoin that I see that just somehow we have to take care of that. And
we got to create new buyers in a sense, because everybody else is already in.
Yeah, or either that or a conversion of the shitcoiners. And right now they, if you look, I think you posted on one of your articles where since July, the average shitcoin is down 40%, and some of them are down 90%. And these people that have bought into this DeFi stuff, unless they were on the ground floor, they've really just taken huge hits, and they're not on sound money, and they're not. They want that easy money, and that's what I don't know how we get back to the old fundamentals that we have to do work to be productive, because
well, the free money has to end, and it's not going to end until it's entirely.
When you're hungry, it's not virtual reality, it's reality. And,
I have a great quote. So I published the MRI to TradingView this week. I haven't given people permission yet. I want to make sure that TradingView doesn't flag my script. But at the end, so I spent all day writing up, the description of the MRI, and I provided a dozen pictures to try and explain it. It's basically the same thing as the TI before. I just remarked it. But then at the end, I quoted Jesse Livermore. I was on a phone with someone earlier, and he pointed me to this quote from Jesse Livermore. You know who that is, of course, right?
Oh yeah, no, I have a whole article with him, and he had people, like I say, he considered a very successful trader, but his demise was ballistic trauma in the head. So you don't want to be as successful as Jesse Livermore.
Yeah, but he traded, some of the craziest money. I mean, he was born in 1870, and he was trading all through the Great Depression and the big crashes before that, 1907, 1910, those were serious markets. So here's one of his quotes. I'm going to read it word for word. The average man doesn't wish to be told that it's a bull or a bear market. What he desires is to be told specifically which particular stock to buy or sell. He wants to get something for nothing. He does not wish to work. He does not even wish to have to think.
There you go.
And he wrote that probably close to 100 years ago.
Wow.
I want to pull up, if you can, Juan, Tone, several months ago. I know you've had it on your show and you shared it with me. It was by Wilder, that little quote.
Oh, yeah.
That is so good. And guys, if you can get that through your head, you've just learned so much from this show. Can we pull that up?
What's the quote? From who?
The one I sent you the picture on the Telegram group.
Oh yeah, that's right. I got
Okay.
it. Give me a second.
All right.
Here.
So,
Yeah, just grab that image. But you know what the irony is? The whole irony of that, before we read that part, is that I read that whole book. The book is not big. It's a book about technical analysis. And the book was maybe, I don't know, 100 pages, 70 pages.
I read it.
Let's say 100 pages. 2 pages were dedicated to risk management. 2.
Yes. That's my criticism of every book. You know, you and I both spent thousands of dollars over our lifetime, maybe 100,000 or more in my case, on various books. And so we've read them all, and they all, at best, the best technical analysts have a chapter on money management. But most just have a blurb about it. But this was such a classic. If we can bring that up, because this, I think, it demonstrates the weakness here. First of all, he lists number 3 as
there it is.
what should be number 1. And that is the hardest, most important thing is money management. Guys, you got to have that part of your DNA. Otherwise, you're doomed to success. You can know all the fundamentals in the world. You can know all the TA in the world. But if you don't have money management, it's the only thing that will destroy you and ruin you. And if you want to read the conclusion, here's a great technical analyst, but he still fell back into the, I don't know, this maze of TA and forgot that, because that is the most fascinating part. We get, I call it being an analyst instead of an analyst. We tend to be real anal. But sometimes, guys, if you're having that problem, just throw your charts away, throw the fundamentals away, and just practice your money management alone, because it takes a great deal of discipline. And once you master that, then you're ready for fundamentals, then you're ready for TA. Then, you know, guys, look at my track record. I publish everything that I do, and everything that I've actually, I started with 4 Bitcoin. I just figured it out. It's 61 Bitcoin. That 4, actually, I started with 2. You can add another 22 because I made that the end of 2017. But I publish everything I do, guys. And the secret is not I'm that good at TA. I'm not. Okay. The secret is I haven't had those big downturns, and I haven't exposed myself to where I can get my little fanny beat. And that's where, if you're looking for that free money, you're not looking at it right. Now, I was able to form this other little business, Ugly Old Goat, which I wouldn't have done, Tone, if you hadn't encouraged me. So I appreciate you doing that. But that's my forte. That's my little side business that I enjoy. Then I'm retired now, so this is what I want to be doing. But in your own expertise, you know, get to be the very best at what you can do, and learn to be specialized in what we do. I have another business, and that's how we made it there. We're doing things right now during the election years, but be the very, very best that you can do, and then use Bitcoin as your home base is basically the way you need to do this. And you don't have to get all caught up in the technical or the fundamentals. That's fine, but make sure you've got that money management solidly planted in your head before you start trading. And I don't know if you send the link. We had the Working Man's Bitcoin Cruise, and Tone and I both have a mutual friend, Zazo Duarte, who he lost his Bitcoin hodl. and he needed to confide with people about it. And I was honored because he confided with me and he confided with Tone. And I said, look, Zazo, other people need to learn this. It's really an important lesson. And he was brave enough to come on the Working Man's Bitcoin cruise and share his experience. And I am confident that Zazo will probably be a very great trader when because he's a young man. And I keep telling you guys, you know, I'll trade all my Bitcoin if I can have your youth, but I don't. All I can do is pass on what little bit I know. And the most important thing I can emphasize, guys, it's money management, money management, money management. And if you think you got it nailed down, you don't, because it's something you have to remind yourself every day. And, you know, since I published my trades, it's really helped me because I feel responsible. I can't make a script like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, once I've made that commitment to say, you know what, you teach by example. And I kind of learned that. I don't know if you know who Hans Svanholm is? Were you around for him? He was an economist with Foundation for Economic Education. He was a German Luftwaffe pilot who immigrated to it was a prisoner of war, very interesting life. But he was a big free market advocate and teacher. And he said the way that we teach is by example. And that's what we have to do. We just have to teach by example. When people ask him about Social Security, he said, well, I'm just not taking it. I couldn't do that. I mean, I paid Social Security all my life. And so I took Social Security and I converted it to Bitcoin and it made me $1 million. That simple. That's what Bitcoin does through dollar cost averaging. But what I'm emphasizing to you guys is not trading is not that important. It's just one aspect of living. Your most important thing, of course, is your immediate family and everybody around you. And then after that, a business, a focus on that business, and then have that business on a standard, a reliable standard, and we'll weather through this. And I think what's going to emerge from Bitcoin is just a new level of integrity. I think we're going to actually, it's not going to be just sound money, but it's going to be a sound morality, a morality that maybe we've lost in the last few generations.
Yeah, that's something that actually does give me an interesting kind of hope in Bitcoin, is that there is a Bitcoin culture. Like the people that are into Bitcoin, that understand and appreciate what it is, even against all the odds and in the context of everything, we share a general context and a way of looking at things. You know, and it's not like we have a monoculture, because politically there's a full spectrum, but there's a core, and that's maybe the real meme to some degree. I mean, I think Bitcoin needs to stand out. It has to stand on its own merits, but the culture is kind of part of what needs to also keep spreading. So that's good.
I see a comment that says Tone should smile more. Yeah, that is true. There's not much to smile about these days, to be honest with you. Like, the world is really depressing, and it's not because of COVID. It's because of the politicians forcing you to react a certain way to the existence of COVID. And I think that's what's really making it very depressing.
Well, we have a question here from Ugly Skid. It says, seems like inflation is already reflected in the stock market and real estate. When that flows into consumer price index, what should we expect to happen in the stock market and real estate?
I don't think it's inflation. I don't think it's inflation. I think it's people's fear of what to do with their money, and especially institutional fear as to what to do with the money. And they find it to be the safest place to be in assets. So I don't think it's inflation. I think it's speculation. Real estate is having really weird things right now, because the real estate in these prime expensive areas like New York, like San Francisco, it's crashing. The real estate in the suburbs is rising, but that's also because there'll be a big migration from inner cities to the suburbs, because the culture of remote working is now going to be a lot more accepted. Yeah. So I don't see the rise in real estate in the stock market as due to inflation. I just see it due to real natural economic forces.
So how is it possible that they can, you look at this M2 charts or M1 charts, and it's like a parabolic rise in supply, how is it possible that there isn't any inflation? Like, where's that money going?
It's back at the Fed, right? I mean, the Fed is buying up a lot of these assets. Like this money, it's a lot of this money it's fictional. It's not fictional, but it's digital. It's not physical. They're not printing trillions of dollar bills. Like if they did that, then you can really see where the dollar bills are going.
I think what Jones is saying is that because there's been this huge loss in real wealth, that all this inflation has just held things the same. It's not really causing price increases. It's just kind of holding things where they are. Is that a correct view of the way you see it?
Yeah. I mean, like right now in the inner cities, like New York, like San Francisco, you can go and rent an apartment at like a 20% discount than you could a year and a half ago. So you can't just say that inflation is rising. Are the things at the supermarket really that much more expensive? You know, I buy expensive products. I like my food to be clean and healthy. So I'm always overpaying for certain things. I mean, I'm paying $5 a carton for my eggs at the farmer's market, free range, local farms. So I'm paying $5 for a dozen. I was just with a friend the other day who runs a cafe, and he's like, "Oh, Tone, can we just swing around the corner here? I buy my eggs from this place." It was actually funny. I'm like, "Really? This place sells eggs?" It looked like an abandoned like building. He's like, "Yeah, it's the only thing they sell, and it's just an egg supplier." And he bought, I think, 30 dozen eggs for like $30 or something like that. Like we're literally talking like 20 cents an egg, like something insane, right? So it's hard for me to argue that there's massive inflation. Yeah, there is healthcare, education, but those are the most government subsidized industries we have. Like the more free market industries, like the technology sector, you know, like the food sector, I don't think inflation is that bad. Sure, if you compare it to what it was like to go shopping 20 years ago, but at the same time, it's not. And I'm all a big fan of like healthy eating, and some of the healthiest things you can eat. Some of them are expensive. Some of them are not expensive. People just refuse to eat it. And some of them are expensive, depends on where you buy it. So here's another example. The four healthiest things that I eat, and I eat all four of these regularly. And I'll walk through them as far as prices go as well. So people are gonna laugh at, some of them may seem very expensive, but they're not. So the four most healthiest things I eat are, and I eat, like I said, I eat them regularly. Liver, all kinds of liver, that's one, meat liver, cod liver, which you can buy in a can. You may have to go to an international food market. Cod liver with cod liver oil right in the can. This is the kind of stuff people pay like God knows how much money a pill for. Cod liver in a can, meat liver, oysters, and caviar. Now, you may think that oysters and caviar are expensive. They're not. They're not expensive if you know how to buy them. So we'll walk through caviar first. I go to an international market. I buy a pound of salmon caviar for $20. That's a pound. And it takes me about a week to eat it. And that cost me $20. So I eat it maybe every other day, and I eat about, I don't know, 100 grams worth or something like that. So am I still live? Did I lose people? I may not still be live, but Ugly's gone. I'm live. All right. So I'll walk through that. So if you think caviar is expensive, it's not if you know how to buy it decently. Oysters are actually cheap as hell. If you go to a nice restaurant, it'll be about $5 an oyster. If you buy them at the farmer's market, it'll be about $10 for a dozen. So you're getting them at under $1 an oyster. But if you buy them in a can, which is nutritionally equivalent, if you buy these oysters in a can, it comes out to like 20 cents or 15 cents an oyster. So you get a can with like 15 oysters, and a can is like $3. It's you can eat very nutritious things, and you can get them cheap if you know how to buy them. So the inflation argument gets over exaggerated sometimes, because when I was a kid, $100 was a lot of money, and it can buy you a lot of things. And that's when I was a kid. We're talking 20 plus years ago. Today, $100 is still nothing to sneeze at. It's not like we're not in Venezuela. We're not in these third world countries. I mean, if someone gives you $100 today, that's pretty good. You can go get like an amazing meal. Sure, it bought you a lot more shit in 1990 or even in the year 2000, but $100 back then was valuable, and now it's still valuable. So the inflation argument gets really overblown, really overblown.
Interesting. All right. Well, looks like we're okay. We kind of disconnected there for a moment.
Well, okay.
Any last thoughts?
Sorry, I have to clean up the word caviar. So caviar is a general word for fish eggs. You can get, like, some of them are cheap, some of them are expensive. Beluga is like $120 a pound, or like a gram, whatever it is. It's like reasonably expensive. Salmon is a little bit cheaper, but even salmon fish eggs, they range from $20 a pound to $50 a pound. I guess depends on the salmon, but as long as it's, it's the nutritional value is pretty much the same.
Okay, well, my view is that I think Douglas Casey might finally be right after 40 years, but we'll have to wait and see. He was predicting $3,000 to $6,000 gold back then, and to me, this is the table is set. I don't, with the way that we've changed the dynamics and our views of bailouts. It may not be this bailout, but it just seems like we are headed for the demise of the dollar, and I think it can come sooner more than later. But I haven't bought into that gold argument for a long time, but I do think that if there was ever a time, I've recommended buying gold in August. Haven't been right yet. Haven't been stopped out yet on the seasonal gold trade. But for that reason, based on the fundamentals and based on the seasonality of it, which is a different kind of trade than technical trading completely. But to me, gold is useful within jurisdictions, whereas Bitcoin is useful anywhere. So there's definitely an advantage of Bitcoin, but there isn't. It's within other Bitcoin users, whereas I think gold still has a much more widespread base than Bitcoin does. Yeah. All right.
My view is that I don't know exactly what games the Fed is playing, but we are going through a technological parabolic rise in advancements. Everything should be getting more efficient. Everything should be getting better. Like, we have the best technology in the world, the best communications in the history. We're post-industrial era. We've basically mastered industrialization of anything. You can mass produce anything if you try hard enough. All the knowledge is there already. And yet things aren't getting cheaper. They're staying more or less around the same price in the United States. They're getting more expensive in other places. Maybe, I don't know. I have to check. But so my theory has always been that whatever games they're playing, they're basically scraping the value created by the innovators off through this inflation, and then using that for political aims, and keeping things more or less afloat. And even then, there's definitely a slow decline at the very least. So
yeah,
I guess we'll see how long that can continue.
And one last note on the inflation. I sure have a little bit of more of an American-centric view. I know, like, other countries have had their currencies destroyed, like Argentina, several times in the last few decades. But if you take, if we do use like America as an example, it's good that you mentioned technology, Juan. Like, look, I would rather live in the current right now, and with the current level of inflation, than go back 20 years. Like, even if I can earn my salary right now because salaries have gone up in the last 20 years. Maybe not by much, but they have gone up. So I would rather earn my salary with the current level of, like right now in 2020, than go back 20 years earning the same salary as I do now and living 20 years ago with the technology of 20 years ago. I'm sorry, I like my smartphone. I'd rather take this era. Now, granted, I'm talking from a US-centric point of view, and because we never had like hyperinflation, we never had any real inflation that destroyed, your life savings. So, and that's what I mean. When Americans talk about crazy inflation, I think it's overblown. I just think those views are overblown. Back in 2020, I was still in university and I had a very good job. I was earning $9 an hour somehow. And that was my income. Look, I'd rather earn, if you put me back in 2020, give me $100,000 income in 2020 when I was making $9 an hour, give me $100K a year. I'd still rather live now with $100K a year with my modern technology. I would like to be 20 years younger right now, but I'd still rather live in this society right now today because of technology, because technology only goes forward and your life only gets easier. And prior to this past year, I used to say the world was getting safer and safer and safer by the decade. But now with what's happening this year, with the shutdowns and all these pretty violent protests, I can't say that anymore. It's hard for me to believe that the world will continue to get safer, but it's been getting safer for millennium, almost every decade. Yes, we had World War II, World War I, but overall, there were massive wars hundreds of years ago as well. The world was generally getting safer.
Yeah, I do think that other countries aren't having the same problems either, because I see, Mexico is becoming safer and safer, and people are, I think, recognizing that. And even the idea of this online education, I think, could just turn out to be a wonderful blessing, because people are realizing, well, why am I sending my kids to public school anyway when they can learn this stuff online? And I think it might be, in that sense, it might be a big wake-up call as far as the educational sector goes.
Yeah, the change in education curriculums and the way that it's structured, I think that's the biggest sort of silver lining of this whole thing.
I mean, it's nice to have my daughter here learning online, sitting next to me. She's usually right back there sitting next to me at the desk. And because of the show, we're not doing that. I would have
homeschooled anyway. I think so this just makes it easier, right? Like it gets us to kickstart this education economy, online education economy.
Hey, can we talk about one more issue real quick, guys? Can I just get screen share permissions?
Yeah, you should have it.
I might have it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So someone just brought this up in the live chat. JP Morgan, because I've always given shit to Zero Hedge because they break a lot of stories, but they also phrase those stories terribly. I think they did a better job this time. So once again, all of the gloom and doomers and all the gold promoters are titling articles, JP Morgan to pay $1 billion settlement over precious metals manipulation. So I hate these headlines. The fact that it's, first of all, I am not convinced that it's only gold and silver. It's possible that it's a dozen commodities, with gold and silver just being two of the commodities. The other thing is, this is the wrong headline. They're not manipulating the price of gold and silver. They are spoofing orders, and they don't give a shit which asset they are spoofing. Spoofing is basically you're throwing up an order that you don't anticipate on executing so that you can get some advantage in the market on a trade. These are not manipulations of the price. They are an illegal practice in order for the one doing the practice to take advantage of a trade. That's all it is. So whenever I always have this argument with The people that think that gold and silver would be infinitely high if it wasn't for banks manipulating. Just think about it logically. If why would a bank basically depress the price of gold and silver? First of all, they love selling you gold and silver when you think it's going to the moon. Second, why would a bank do this? And now you take your conspiracy theory further, saying, well, the government wants to manipulate the price of gold and silver down, so the banks have to do it for them. Then why is the government fining them $1 billion for doing it, right? It's like these conspiracy theories go out of control. Guys, it's spoofing. That's all it is. It's traders trying to take advantage. And they happen to like doing it in gold and silver. I bet you they do it in oil as well. Maybe they do it in other markets. This is not some kind of a conspiracy against gold and silver. It's just a bunch of banks that make money from illegal practices. This is not some kind of a suppression of price. So that's another argument I always fight with irrational misunderstanding of headlines.
Yeah, I never go there because it is those people, they do not understand how markets operate. They just don't. So, all right.
I think I'm done. It's been almost 2 hours.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you want, if you're new listeners here, go to Tone's website. If you want to learn about, he's got a free course on learning trading.
Yeah.
He will say between that and Tyler Jenks' book, of what I think was written by Socrates, has a really good section on technical trading. And that book's like $10, and Tone's course is free. If you want to learn about technical trading, those are the two books that I highly recommend. But I don't recommend you go there until you first get the idea of money management through your head. And it's not a popular topic. In fact, Tone, maybe you should close a little bit. Tell me the story about your money management seminar and how successful it was financially for you.
Oh, not very much, because a lot of people just don't want to take the time to learn proper money management. Yeah, thanks for sharing my website there, Juan, for a minute. And yeah, I do have the free section called Learn Trading. And I'm pretty much only selling 2 videos right now, one on technical analysis, one on money management. And I got to send that to you, Ugly. I'm not sure if you've seen my latest one. Money management was like about 5-6 hours long. I thought it was pretty good. And okay. I released the MRI indicator. So I'll be teaching a workshop a week from Saturday on that. And that's about it. That's all I'm really doing. Plus the conferences. I'm hoping to see both of you back at Unconfiscatable in April. That's going to be good. Bali had to be postponed, but we may do something in Mexico before Unconfiscatable in March.
Okay.
Sounds fun.
We'll be at that one if you do that. That's no problem. I hope it's a place where we can take our razors.
Yeah, you just come down and we'll run around.
Yeah, you need to come down here and go for a ride on my new toys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. If I'm coming down to Mexico for a financial summit, I'll definitely come hang in your house for a little bit. Yeah, I'll come and crash.
Well, if any way we can help you out on that, let me know. We can maybe help you a little bit on the logistics.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people might be willing to come to a Tijuana conference or something like that, or in Ensenada, because it's right next to San Diego. You just fly to San Diego and cross the border.
Yeah, there's no restrictions.
There's no restrictions.
There's no restrictions.
Over. So
the only restriction is my wife can't go across the border because she has a tourist visa and not a working visa. No, they extended it a month, so it's October. But there's no problem. U.S. citizens coming down, or actually, if you have a green card, you can go to the United States. You just have to show that you're essential. But coming down here for tourist Mexico, they have their arms open to you. They want you to come down here and spend your dollars.
Yep.
So, and they do know how to have fiestas in Mexico.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for having me on.
Right. Thanks, man.
All right.
And thanks everybody on the chat, and make sure you like it and share it, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks. Recognized a bunch of people. Zazo was there. Shibley, Motorist. Thanks, guys. Thanks
Yeah.
for moderating.
Yeah.